When we last left the battle between Lieutenant General James Longstreet and Major General Ambrose Burnside, they had met at Lenoir Station. According to the plan, after the two sides met, Burnside's men would make a run for Campbell Station, which is currently named Farragut, Tennessee. The chase is now on. Longstreet's men would chase the Union forces to Campbell Station to try to ultimately take Knoxville back. Come along with us as we take part in the chase to Knoxville, Tennessee. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seat belts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The plan. We will once again lay out the plan for the Union forces. Burnside felt strongly that his 5,000 troops could advance towards Longstreet and, after contact was made, slowly back themselves up to Knoxville, where the remainder of his troops would be waiting in a trap. Burnside felt that as long as he kept Longstreet engaged, that Longstreet would not return to Chattanooga to reinforce Bragg. Grant accepted this and let Burnside enact his plan. Even through heavy November rain and muddy conditions, Part 1 of the plan had gone as directed. The Union did not fully engage the Confederate troops at Lenoir Station, and at the first opportunity left the field of battle and made for the next stage of the plan. Mules had to drag the artillery through the mud, and the Union forces burned the remaining supplies at the campsite before they left. Burnside divided up his troops, with one division guarding the retreating supply wagons and the other division being a rear guard for the other troops. Forming the rear guard of the retreating Union men were Colonel William Humphrey's brigade of Ferraro's division and one section of Captain Jacob Romer's Battery L, 2nd New York Artillery. Humphrey's brigade had 700 men strong. Race to the Kingston and Concord roads intersection. Both of the armies had the goal of getting to the Kingston Road and Concord Road intersection before the other. This location was 1 mile west of Campbell Station. Burnside wanted to get to this intersection first to make a Union stand against the oncoming Longstreet forces. Longstreet tried to reach the intersection to cut off the retreating Union forces from reaching Knoxville, Tennessee. Both armies were having to navigate their way through rainy and muddy conditions. Longstreet had poorly marked maps and unreliable scout information that hampered his ease of navigation of the area. At 9:30 a.m. on November 16, 1863, Humphrey's 3 Michigan regiments reached the intersection first and made their stand. 15 minutes later, the forces of Longstreet arrived and the combat began. Longstreet's men would launch 5 successful attacks against Humphrey's rear guard, but they could not stop the Union forces from reaching Knoxville. The first strike. Upon arriving at the intersection, Longstreet had his men divide and strike the Union forces from 2 sides to completely surround them. Major General Lafayette McLaws' Confederate division delivered a devastating blow to the Union right. This blow was so harsh and devastating that the Union had to redeploy its right flank, and it held during the attack. Brigadier General Michael Jenkins' Confederate division was ineffective in its attack, and the left flank of the Union forces held their ground. The skirmish continued for half an hour. The Union forces were called to fall back in an orderly fashion, 3/4 of a mile to a ridge near their rear. The second strike. During the second stand at the ridge, Colonel Huntington Smith of the 20th Michigan Infantry Regiment was shot and killed. Humphrey launched a brief charge to drive back Bratton's lines. The Union brigade held a fence line for half an hour before once again falling back to the next line of defense. This would be Hardramp's position at the forks of the road. The third strike. Colonel William Humphrey set up a brigade at the crossroads to the left of Colonel David Morrison's brigade of Ferraro's division. Hardramp's division and Bridle's cavalry were ordered to withdraw 1.2 kilometers east to Turkey Creek. At this time, the wagon train of supplies had safely passed the fork and were heading east on the Kingston Road, heading toward Knoxville, Tennessee. In the meantime, Brigadier General Micah Jenkins' Confederate division was divided up. Branton's brigade was sent to the left, and Brigadier General George T. Anderson's brigade was sent to the right. This position would have Humphrey and Anderson facing off against each other. Just as Humphrey's flank was about to fall to Anderson's men, the 36th Massachusetts and the 8th Michigan Infantry Regiments of Morrison's brigade joined Humphrey's position and stopped Anderson's onslaught. The two regiments then hurried to the right flank and helped stop Branton's brigade. Afterward, the men were double quick and escaped the attempted envelope and fell back to the Turkey Creek position. The fourth strike. It was noon when McLaw's troops arrived to assist Jenkins in the chase. Jenkins had lost many men to the very accurate and heavy Union artillery fire. There was a little trouble with the orders that Longstreet had given to the men. For 3 hours there was confusion as to who would lead the charge, McLaw's or Jenkins. Because of this, there was kinda an artillery duel between the two sides. At 3 p.m., Jenkins was granted permission from Longstreet to engage the enemy. Jenkins once again split his men, this time into 3 divisions. They were commanded by Law, Anderson, and Benning. These 3 divisions went into the wooded area on the right to try to get into a position to surround the Union on the left flank. This failed when Law's brigade attacked from the wrong direction. It was at this time that Burnside once again withdrew his men in an orderly fashion to Loveville, Tennessee, without any effort on the part of Jenkins or McLaw's to stop the withdrawal. The fifth and final strike. At 4 p.m., the Union Army arrived on the Kingston Road at Loveville. When the Confederate forces drew near to this position, it was stopped by the Union artillery fire. Colonel Edward Porter Alexander ordered his artillery guns to return fire, and another artillery duel started, with neither side able to grab an upper hand on the other side. Jenkins once again ordered Law, Benning, and Anderson to attack Hardramp to the south. The fighting between the two sides lasted for 2 hours. By 6 p.m., Burnside once again ordered his men to withdraw, this time to Knoxville, Tennessee. The 1st Union Infantry reached Knoxville at 4 a.m. on November 17, 1863. The Union officers were very proud of their hungry and exhausted troops for the way that they had handled themselves in the battle. Aftermath. The National Park Service estimates that there were 400 Union casualties and 570 Confederate casualties over the course of the 5 strikes. The total for the loss of men for the battles ranging from November 14th through 16th would bring the Union tally to 438 men in total. The Confederate number of casualties remained the same. While this was a running withdrawal, this is considered to be a Union victory, as Burnside's plan of action had worked. By drawing Longstreet into a prolonged battle in the chase to Knoxville, Burnside was able to keep Longstreet in the area and away from Bragg's army. Grant was able to build up his troops and threaten Bragg at the Battle of Missionary Ridge. In next week's video, we will begin the siege of Knoxville, Tennessee, and how Burnside was able to sustain everyone from starvation, and the remarkable heroism and death of Colonel William Sanders. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. We wish to thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.